Tavini, we've known each other for a while. Whenever we meet, we tend to geek out about mastering, and that's pretty much what we're gonna do here today.
Of course.
I know you've mastered quite a few cool things and you've done some really cool jobs. What are the highlights of your career up to this point, you would say?
I think getting to master the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra was a pretty special moment. Because my background is in classical music. That's what I studied at uni. So yeah, that was really, really cool. Actually just had a release yesterday, which is for my first game score that I mastered. So that's the London Contemporary Orchestra. Yeah, with an incredible composer called Nanita. She's just so good. And yeah, it was a real privilege to work with her. You know, one of the first bands I ever worked with, actually the second band I worked with, is Sonic Boom 6, and they're quite big on the punk scene. So they sort of really got me into mastering, and I got quite a lot of work off the back of that. So
in your opinion, what's the special skills that a mastering engineer should have, let's say, compared to a mixing engineer? You said you started with mixing and you were not really into that, and then mastering basically won you. So what do you think is the special thing that you should have as a mastering engineer?
Mastering is a quality check. So it's not, oh, what happens when I blend these sounds and, you know, throw them through some reverb or delay or whatever. It's more, does this mix function? Can I hear everything? But the way I see it is you've got to be very good at critical listening if you're a mastering engineer. And it is creative. You know, people think mastering, oh, you're just making stuff louder. It's not, it's not creative. But it is, because every project is different. Every artist is different. Every mix engineer is different. They all have different rooms and they all have different tastes. So you have to very objectively go, right, is what they're doing working? And if it's not, how can it be better without necessarily changing the artistic vision? And I think that's really important.
So which styles do you master the most? So do you have a specific genre that you're more into? Or are you, just mastering everything that comes your way?
A lot of what I master is punk, because the earlier stuff that I was working on was punk and did very well, and I kind of got known in that scene. But yeah, I'll master metal, rock, electronic. I had quite a lot of techno in recently, classical music, like we chatted about before. So, I mean, that's one of the things I like about mastering, is just how varied it is.
So WaveLab is your mastering platform of choice. How did you discover WaveLab, and what are the features that stood out for you and you started using it?
My first copy of WaveLab came free with a version of Cubasis, like back in the day. Yeah.
I think I know what you mean.
Because I was starting to learn how to program MIDI, and I'm showing my age, and then I thought, well, I'll install this free thing that's come with it and see what that is. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I was like 14 at the time or something, and it just seemed really cool that you could actually start filing all of your sounds away. And, especially because I was making electronic music at the time with like really short like samples, and I could label them. But yeah, when I sort of started coming back into mastering, like 2009-ish, I was like, okay, let's look at the full version of this, and thought, okay, this does everything I need it to. So one of the things that I noticed about WaveLab is that you have all of these amazing diagnostics tools, which you don't get in normal DAWs, and, you can't embed metadata in a normal DAW. You can't do a DDP. People say CDs are dying out, but actually I make so many DDPs, people still are releasing stuff on CD. And all of that's possible in this one software. So, why would I use anything else?
So speaking of WaveLab 10, which would you say are the standout features that will help you the most in your workflow?
I think the standout features for me, number one, is the reference tracks. So now you don't need an external plugin to do your referencing. You've just got a reference track at the top of the montage. You can have up to 3, and then reference whatever. You just click a button. You don't need to do anything. You literally just click a button. And that's really, really cool, because you know, bands and artists send reference tracks, and that's really, really useful. But having to go through a plugin to reference just feels so clunky. But now it's all been in, like that's just part of the workflow now. It's just completely seamless. And that's really exciting. One of the other features that I really like is the extended external effects. So basically what that is I can connect each of the components of my studio, all of my outboard gear, as individual effects. And then they will appear in WaveLab 10 as a plugin, which is really, really cool because that means, you know, if I want to bypass something, I don't necessarily have to, you know, touch any of the units, especially since I've got some behind me and, you know, wherever. It means that I don't have to have my studio set up like a conventional mastering studio with everything in front of me. It means that I can treat all of my hardware as plugins, which is going to be a bit of a time saver.
Okay, now let's go to the geeky stuff.
Cool.
Can you please talk about your approach when you're mastering? Do you start by like cleaning out the track? Do you use plugins? Do you use hardware? I can already see that you have quite a few cool things here. So do you use a combination of things, plugins and hardware? What's your, you know, perspective?
Well, you know, I treat every project differently because they are all different. They all for different people who have recorded in different rooms. They all have different tastes, and it's really important to like think about that before you start. I mean, yeah, my setup is very hybrid. I do use a lot of plugins. I tend to use plugins if I want a clean sound, but with my outboard, I want it to sound like, you know, really, really characterful. And so that's why, you know, there's a few of the pieces around here.
Some people say that mastering is art. Some say it's a dark art. Do you agree with that? Do you think that mastering is art, basically?
I think that mastering is an art, but I don't think it's a dark art. There's definitely a lot of patience involved. You have to be very critical. You have to be sort of listen very carefully and take on board a lot of people's different styles and tastes, and then make something beautiful.